Crypt.
So last year I hastily threw together a top 5 Christmas episodes list. I don't even remember doing it. I did it like on Christmas Day. Nobody watched it. I only did it because I felt I had to do something for Christmas. I'm not a huge Christmas guy. Like, I like Christmas, it's fun, but I find out of all the holidays, it kind of loses a lot of its wonder with adulthood. Maybe when I have kids of my own, it'll return, but for now, I'll just take Thanksgiving as my favorite so I can be a gluttonous hog. So don't expect a Halloween level workload because you aren't getting 6 fucking videos again in a month until maybe next Halloween. But you'll get 2 Christmas videos out of me this year. With that being said, let's start Christmas the best way to possibly start it by watching an episode of Tales from the Crypt. Funny how the first Tales from the Crypt and Me episode I did was the first episode of the series, so I'm gonna do the second one for the holiday season. Maybe as opposed to my Simpsons reviews where I just kind of do them like in the order I feel like, I may review the entire Tales from the Crypt series in order. Tales from the Crypt was a horror show. There's no denying it, but due to its anthology nature and multiple directors and writers, it would delve into all sorts of different horror styles. Supernatural horror, comedy horror, thriller, body horror, mystery, etc. But in what I consider to be the second or third best episode of the first season, they decided to go for a slasher vibe with the Christmas themed episode and All Through the House. It starts off like the many Tales from the Crypt episodes that would follow, with a woman murdering her husband in cold blood before attempting to conceal the body. On the news, there are reports of an escaped mental patient dressed as Santa Claus running around and killing women, but that couldn't possibly cross over into the story of the divorced, greedy, murderous housewife who has yet to get her comeuppance. Yes, spoiler alert, it does, and honestly the whole episode is just a game of cat and mouse, but Larry Drake, who plays the Santa, is probably my second favorite killer Santa after Ricky from Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2.
Garbage Day! Huh? No!
Once the setup is done, the rest of the episode is just this fun little slasher chase sequence. Not only is Elizabeth trying to survive the killer Santa, but Elizabeth is also trying to protect her daughter, who is mostly unaware of the threat presented to her. So, despite murdering her husband, Elizabeth is not completely devoid of redeeming character traits here. She does clearly care for her child. The Santa has little to no personality traits besides being a fucking maniac, which is fine. He doesn't need any extended character development for a 30-minute program. To me, Tales from the Crypt is just kind of a love letter to horror in general, but specifically to 80s horror, with some elements borrowed from classic horror. Despite being mostly made in the 90s, it is the last little glimmer from the 80s horror before the genre changed drastically in the 1990s. And in All Through the House is one of the greatest slasher tributes anybody could have made. Well, maybe not, but it was still pretty good. Minor spoilers, skip to the timestamp if you haven't seen it and don't want it spoiled, but it's not a major twist. After basically doing everything she can to secure the house, learning that she can easily pawn the death of her husband off on the psycho, Elizabeth takes a deep breath, only to find out that her daughter, thinking the killer to be the real Santa Claus, has led him into the house. The Crypt Keeper makes sure to elaborate that the daughter was okay after the Santa brutally murdered her mother in front of her. The episode was written by Fred Decker, who did the excellent film Night of the Creeps before doing 2 shitty movies, RoboCop 3 and The Predator, and it was directed by Robert Zemeckis. It's also worth noting that this episode is not the only adaptation of this story. The 1970s Tales from the Crypt movie also had And All Through the House adapted, and it looks a little different. I haven't seen it, didn't watch it, haven't watched that movie, but I might check it out at some point. Maybe near the end of my Tales from the Crypt and Me reviews, I will take a look at the movie. It is a simple but effective concept. It has some good jump scare moments and is a nice little slasher story, but my main issue is because of the confining screen time, and yes, you're going to hear a lot of this complaint with the Tales from the Crypt series, it doesn't get to deliver as much as it could have delivered. But I guess due to the fast pace of it, any longer would have made it drag out. It lacks the substance needed to be considered an all-time great, but it's still a really fun episode. But flaws aside, it is easily one of the stronger entries in Tales from the Crypt's first season. It's fast-paced, it's well-casted, and everyone plays their part well. It's tense, but it has a payoff. It's a nice little Christmassy slasher story. Despite my dislike for Fred Decker because of RoboCop 3 and The Predator, he did make a good story out of this. It really does feel Christmassy in a morbid type way. The bottle setting and wintry Christmas atmosphere gives it that cozy kind of watch feel. I throw this on during my week off over the holidays. I don't care. Larry Drake is imposing. I really wish he got to do more than he did. Like, in the 2 roles that I know him for, this and then Darkman, where he's like the villain, he's a great villain. But he's done all sorts of other shit too. It's just I wish he got more villain roles, more high-profile villain roles. Ellon Trainor is pretty good too. She plays the Black Widow housewife role really well and does make for a decent scream queen. Marshall Bell doesn't get enough screen time, but he's one of those guys who always gets a minor role but manages to make the most out of that minor role, and All Through the House is no exception. If I was to rate this episode on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give it a solid 7. Above average, pretty good, but it's ultimately lacking substance to warrant a higher rating. Keep in mind my 1 to 10 scale is very fast. Like, a 7 is probably like the most complimentary mid rating I can give an episode. A 9 is extremely difficult to get, and I can probably count on one hand the episodes in this series that can get a fucking 9, and I wouldn't even need all 5 fingers to count the episodes that get a 10. This goes for The Simpsons as well. That being said, 7 is a solid rating. If you're looking for a quick horror fix this Christmas, check it out. It's on YouTube, on the Crypt channel, upscaled to 4K. I will leave a link in the description. Well, the holidays are underway, so stay tuned for more Christmas-related videos. Maybe next year I'll do the 12 videos at Christmas, but this year, I'm good, bro. Halloween was a task. Later.
Something needs to be done about that fire. Have you got the poker?
Yes.
Well, let me have it.
What did you say?
What are you, deaf? I said let me have it.